Most children now have older parents, right? Because people aren't having children until they're in their 30s. And there's a big difference between having a parent who's in his or her 30s and having a parent who's in his or her 20s.
Yep.
The 20-year-olds are still kind of like kids, and they're going to be more usefully neglectful, I would say.
Times have changed, and with it, the ticking of our biological clocks. Today's parents often find themselves embarking on the parenting journey a bit later in life. And as Jordan Peterson points out, a decade can make quite the difference. There's a certain charm to the chaos that younger parents can bring to the table. Less experience, sure, but also maybe more room for those impromptu life lessons that come from a little benign neglect. But here's a thought. Does the age of a parent really define the experience? Or is it more about the mindset they bring to the journey? Whether you're rocking the cradle at 20 or 35, isn't it the love, the boundaries, and the life lessons that truly make the difference?
Well, look, one of the things we used to do with my daughter when she was very little was, she was about a year and a half, is we'd have her in a room alone, and she would usually complain about that for a few minutes, and then she'd find a way to amuse herself. She liked to take books out of shelves and put them back in, and like if you let her get through that initial bit of misery, then she would learn how to regulate herself, and she got very good at that. And so that's a good example of minor privation having a positive influence.
Peterson takes us back to those early parenting days, leaving his daughter to her own devices in a room. Sure, it starts with protests and gripes, but then something clicks. She discovers the magic of self-entertainment and even more, self-regulation. Perhaps we underestimate just how capable these tiny humans are when we're not hovering. So here's a nugget of wisdom for us to think about. Could stepping back be the warm-up our kids need for life's marathon? It's not about leaving them to the wolves, but about encouraging them to build their inner toolkit. One that's packed with resilience, resourcefulness, and maybe a love for books, even if it's just stacking them up for now.
Children used to have multiple siblings, and siblings toughen you up because there's tremendous competition in families among siblings. But if you only have one child, you're going to devote all your resources to providing them with absolutely everything you can provide them with. And one of the dangers of that is that you'll overprotect them and you'll provide them with too much.
Our parents' generation had a different playbook, more kids, less one-on-one time, and sibling rivalry that could rival any corporate competition. Fast forward, and we're in an era where only child isn't just a statistic. It's almost a parenting style. Peterson's hitting home here asking, are we enriching our kids' lives or just filling them up to the brim? Let's face it, it's tempting to throw everything but the kitchen sink at our kids' futures. But in our quest to give them the best, maybe there's a line where the best becomes too much of a good thing. Finding that line, that's our modern-day parenting quest.
We don't understand those dynamics, right? We don't understand how much you should stay hands off your kids and let them go out there and make their own mistakes and find their own way. And that's tricky, and we're ignorant about it. And so I think one of the consequences of that is that we do have a reasonable percentage of young people, maybe young adolescents, the kind that you hear about at university, who have been overprotected and overscheduled and under-challenged in some sense. And so they're not very resilient.
It's the million-dollar question, isn't it? How hands-off should we be? Jordan Peterson doesn't shy away from saying what many of us fear. We might be coddling our kids into vulnerability. When we gift-wrap their world, are we inadvertently padding out the grit they need? Universities are feeling the brunt of this. Safe spaces, trigger warnings. But is the answer to toughen up or to nurture more wisely? Maybe it's time we assess not just what we're protecting our kids from, but what we're preparing them for. It's like life's a gym, and we've got to let them sweat a little. As we wrap up our deep dive into the world of modern parenting alongside Jordan Peterson's insights, it's clear there's no one-size-fits-all approach. Whether it's navigating the timing of parenthood, the delicate dance of independence, or the intricacies of providing without overprotecting, the journey is as unique as our children themselves. Now, we'd love to hear from you. How do you strike that balance between guiding your children and letting them learn from their own experiences? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. Let's get the conversation going. Thank you for tuning in and taking part in this crucial conversation. Remember, our children are our greatest legacy, and every day with them is an opportunity to shape the future. One story, one lesson, one loving boundary at a time.